Monday, March 21st. And now I call the meeting to order. Okay, now the roll call, Kelly.
Okay, John Lastly.
Here.
Dan Bayshore.
Here.
Kevin Krulik.
Here.
Jeremy Lawler. Absent. Keith Campbell.
Here.
Ashley Paddock. Here. Brian Tandy.
Here.
Ali Mullen. Absent. Lori Gross.
Here.
Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second. The roll call, please.
John Lastly.
Yes.
Dan Bayshore. Kevin Krulik.
Yes.
Keith Campbell.
Yes,
Ashley Paddock.
Yes.
Brian Tandy.
Yes.
Lori Gross.
I wasn't here. Oh.
okay, thank you. Okay, next up is docket number 22-10, 11 in Fieldhouse requesting rezoning to a PUD district planned unit development. The property is located at generally 645 South State Road 39. The property is currently zoned PBC, Planned Business Commercial. Ben?
Good evening, Commission members. I know there's a lot of times that I suggest to you that we're pretty excited about a project, but this time this is a project that's really high up on our list. As many of you may remember, this project, the very north corner of this is actually city-owned property that was formerly a Holiday Inn site that the city purchased and demolished the building. And for a number of years, we've been working to try to figure out what the proper use for this site was. And the thought within the administration with the mayor and all of our team was that we really wanted to try to get some sort of destination use to this site, something that will bring people to the community, also be an amenity for the community, but also bring people to this community just to really see what we have here. And we even went to the length to do a feasibility study about 3 years ago, looking at a variety of different destination uses, like a sports field house, performing arts facility, and other things like that will bring people to the community and really create a destination area here. And what you see here tonight is exactly what we were looking for when we did that feasibility study a few years ago. If they want to pull up the screen here for you. So this is the overall site, and you can see here the 11 or so acres that the city owns is up here in this corner. And then the applicant will be acquiring this remaining property for a total of a little over 90, almost 95 acres for a project that will be anchored by a 200 indoor sports field house. And then would then include the variety of uses you would typically see for a use that will generate over 60,000 visitors a month. So you're going to see a lot of restaurants, hotels, other entertainment uses, and the like. They also have a great partner, Bill Canto, that's going to be bringing some residential uses to this site as well. And so what you have before you tonight, again, is a PUD rezone and ordinance. The process for those that are here in the audience would be that this comes to the Planning Commission tonight for a recommendation on the rezone and ordinance. And then that recommendation then is forwarded to the Common Council at their meeting next Monday night, where they will then consider that PUD rezone and ordinance. Once it's adopted by the council, then they can move forward with development plans and things like that for the site. So this is a multi-step process that begins here at the Planning Commission tonight. With that, I'll go through just a few quick things for you. I know there's a lot of information in the staff report. I won't go through all the development standards and compare things necessarily, but I'll kind of hit some of the highlights. This is the overall concept plan for each site you see here. State Road 39 runs along the west side. Here's the entrance, the signal with an entrance to the Flying J that you see here kind of at the north end, creating another entrance for a road that enters the site here. And then down here you see this is existing Enterprise Drive on the west side, again extending Enterprise Drive to the east through the site. The primary commercial, retail, sports area is the northern 2/3 of the site here. And then the residential portion, as you see the southern third here, and I know the applicant's got a slide that kind of highlights that and colored a little bit better that they'll show you here in a second. And I don't want to steal a whole bunch of their thunder on in terms of the uses that are being proposed here. But the largest building that you see here is the Fieldhouse anchoring the site, and then a variety of uses around it. And when I go through the standards here in a second, really the intention on this primary road that you see through here and then extending back towards the Fieldhouse is to create a more walkable urban environment that you see in a lot of developments like this. So when people are leaving the facility, they can walk down the street, they can stop at the ice cream parlor, they can go to the restaurant, all without popping back in their car and driving through the site. So really you want buildings closer to the street, more accessible to the pedestrian, with parking back behind, which you kind of see represented here. And then I'll explain how the development standards are proposed to do that. So that's a real quick rundown of the concept. Again, I'll let the applicant walk through more detail what you see here. But then kind of walking through how the PUD ordinance is structured. You have two sub-districts within the PUD. The first is the commercial and fieldhouse sub-district, which again is this northern 2/3 of the site, and then a couple of additional uses that kind of extend down along State Road 39. And then the second is the residential sub-district, that then addresses the standards associated with the residential portion for Bel Canto here. So again, just kind of walking through some of the commercial fieldhouse sub-district standards. Again, as I mentioned, they really are trying to get a more urban feel with the buildings closer to the street. So what they've done is created standards for setback, both front, side, and rear setbacks with no minimums. So they'd have the ability to, again, push those buildings up onto the street. This will also allow them to create connected buildings with, if you have side setbacks, it's kind of hard to connect uses in a longer building like that you typically see on an urban street. So having those no minimums on the setbacks will allow you then to do some of those things. They do have perimeter setbacks and buffer yards that will be associated with State Road 39 and the interstate that are based on our thoroughfare overlay standards, so those will still apply here. And then the one big difference you'll see here, in addition to those setback standards, is the maximum building height has been increased to 80 feet. As you can imagine, that would be for the Fieldhouse project, and likely the hotels, it will be taller than our standard of 50 feet, typically in the plain business commercial district. Walking through some of the architectural landscape standards, again, they're going to be following our architectural landscape standards for the most part as it relates to the overlay districts and our landscape standards that apply to commercial projects. There are a few modifications there, again, to allow that more urban feel. So a lot of times we have buffer standards in the front of properties, but that would kind of defeat the purpose if you're trying to pull the building to the street if you're requiring it to be 15 or 20 feet setback with a buffer yard. So we do allow some variations on those. And then one other thing is there's some newer materials that you'll see in some commercial projects. It's called aluminum composite materials that you'll see on a lot of newer projects. And so we're making sure to allow that as a primary material on those commercial buildings. Signage standards, there's some changes here. For a multi-tenant signage, we allow 12 feet in height and 64 square feet, or excuse me, 48 square feet. Because of the sheer scale of this development, a sign of that size really isn't going to be adequate to try to market the number of uses that you can see here. So we have worked with them and have done a signage package that's similar to what we did for the Waterford development to the south and on the other side of the interstate that would allow signs up to 25 feet tall and 200 square feet. And these would be at all major commercial entrances with a minimum separation of 1,000 feet. So you would see them at this northern entrance here at the Flying J signal, at the Enterprise Drive entrance you see down here, and potentially a third one at this major entrance you see the development here along Enterprise Drive. Where there are other entrances, like this middle entrance that you see here that don't meet the 1,000-foot standard, they have a secondary signage that essentially meets our multi-tenant signage standards of 12 feet and 48 square feet. Given that we're allowing the significant signage, before I get to that, we do also allow a multi-tenant sign along the interstate frontage to provide some visibility from the interstate. Given the fact that we're allowing for substantial multi-tenant signage along the major thoroughfares, we do not permit individual ground signs for individual users along those main thoroughfares. So you may see a secondary ground sign along the internal drive, for example, but you will not see those signs along the major frontages like State Road 39, the interstate, or Enterprise Drive. In terms of the residential sub-district, again, they do follow primarily our residential standards for residential and multifamily residential use. They have a few minor changes where there's no minimum lot size or lot width to allow flexibility with the way they design their buildings. Again, they have representatives here that can kind of explain the product in further detail, so I won't really get into that. And then they also have increased the maximum density to 18 units per acre, which is a more typical multifamily density that you would see on a development like this. Again, architectural landscape standards, there's a few variations that we're proposing, but otherwise we do expect them to meet all of our primary standards that you see in both the thoroughfare overlay district and in the residential districts. One change a little bit, and I'll let them kind of explain where they came up with these standards, is the parking standards. So we have a standard in the UDO for multifamily that requires for efficiencies in one bedrooms 1.5 spaces per unit, and then everything else is required to have 2 spaces per unit. They have proposed for efficiencies 1 space per unit, 1.5 spaces for 1 bedroom, 1.75 spaces for a 2-bedroom, and then 2 spaces for anything that's a 3-bedroom. So they have slightly reduced the standards based on what they typically see in the developments like this. I'll let them kind of walk through that for you to explain how that works, but this is what they typically see in a development like this. This isn't their first time doing a development with these types of residential uses, so I'll let them kind of walk through that and explain to you how they came up with those numbers based on what they've seen in other developments. So that's a real quick rundown of the PUD ordinance, and there are decision criteria that must be met in order to consider a PUD rezone such as this. The first is the extent to which a proposal fulfills the requirements and intent of the comprehensive plan. The 2019 City of Lebanon Comprehensive Plan identifies the area contained within this proposal as primarily destination commercial. The destination commercial district is planned for major sports or entertainment, hospitality, retail, and restaurant uses. So as I've explained, this proposal matches that to a T. They're really providing all those uses that we had hoped for in this area, and so it definitely does fulfill the requirements and intent of the comp plan. The second is that the current conditions and character of current structures and uses in each zoning district. And so the Fieldhouse PUD is in a quadrant of the State Road 39 interchange that is primarily undeveloped at this time. However, the city has maintained ownership of the former Holiday Inn site at the corner in order to encourage a mixed-use development that will be anchored by a destination-type use. So this area is definitely master planned for this proposed development and additional supporting uses. The most desirable use of land in each district that is adopted, and again, as previously stated, this really fits very well into what we have envisioned in the comprehensive plan and all the other studies that we've done over the years. And it does create a desirable mix of uses based on the proximity to the interstate and to other amenities. The conservation of property values throughout the city, and it's not anticipated that this development proposed by the applicant will have any negative impact whatsoever on property values. In fact, based on the types of uses and amenities we see here, we think that it's only going to improve values throughout the area. The last one is responsible growth and development. This area of the community is not currently served by public utilities other than electric. However, the scale of the proposal warrants extension of the utilities to the area, and the extension will be a joint private and public project and provide additional capacity for adjoining properties. So given those 5 criteria and staff conclusion and review of the submitted plan unit development rezone and ordinance as presented, Lebanon Planning staff finds compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance, established design criteria, and recommends the Plan Commission forward the plan unit development rezone and ordinance to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, anyone on the board have questions?
Will there be any tall signs along the interstate?
So the primary signage here are allowed to have a 25-foot tall, 200 square foot multi-tenant sign along the interstate, and that would be the only sign that you would see along there.
Okay.
Is a monument sign like that.
Okay.
And what are the 139, all the entrances? How are we going to control the traffic goes in and out of there?
They're actually in the process of doing a traffic study and working with INDOT for what improvements are going to be required along State Road 39. So that is definitely part of the decision-making criteria as it relates to this development. Again, like I talked about, they're expecting just for the Fieldhouse use to up to 60,000 visitors a month. Certainly some of those are one person coming and going 4 or 5 times for the tournament. But we do expect a lot of visitors out here, and so we have already met with, along with the applicant, with INDOT, so they're working through exactly what those improvements are going to need to be. But we definitely expect that there's going to be improvements required.
Okay. Any other questions for Ben? Not hearing any, we have the applicant come forward, please.
Thank you, members of the commission. Alex Innerville with Bose McKinney and Evans, here on behalf of Carden Associates Athletic Facilities, and we're excited to be here. It's like Ben was saying, how excited the staff was to bring this to you. It's been a long process, and first we want to thank the staff. It's been great to work with and really making this a smooth process to this point, and I'm sure that'll continue moving forward. So it's been a pleasure. I have paper handouts of the presentation, and Ben, does this? I just hit play. Oh, it's up. If anyone would like a old-fashioned paper, I've got them, or we'll just keep them out. All right, we'll move ahead. So, talking to Ben, he gave you the details of the PUD ordinance, but I wanted to give you a little more color on who Carden Associates Athletic Facilities is and what's this project going to be, what's it going to look like, what's the genesis of Hickory Junction, which is the name that we've come up with for the Fieldhouse in this development. But to start with Andy Card, he's the founder-owner of Card & Associates Athletic Facilities. He's not able to be here in person with us tonight, but I think he is somewhere on Zoom as well, looking in. But Andy got his start in logistics, family company, and then his lifelong love of athletics and communities brought him to develop these athletic facilities. We'll get into some of the examples that they've built around central Indiana here in a minute. And we've got Billy Bunkhouse here as well. He's Director of Operations, and really has just been involved in the entire process. Some of you may have even met with Billy to date, and he's great to work with. He's got a wealth of knowledge about the project, this project, past projects. He's really vital and instrumental to the entire process. So Billy's here to answer questions as well. And of course, there's a full engineering team, marketing team, and so on behind us. We've got many of those folks here as well. If there are specific questions about drainage, engineering, traffic, we have representatives from Bel Canto as well on that side to answer any of those specifics. Moving on, other central Indiana projects, probably the one that everyone is most familiar with, or at least was first familiar with, is Grand Park over in Westfield. Now the Pacers Athletic Center. And basketball, soccer, all the outside fields that grew with Grand Park. That's not part of this proposed development, but certainly those of you who are familiar with that, the type of visitors that Ben was mentioning coming in for these events, and then the added growth and development of retail, hotel, entertainment, residential, that type of development. We anticipate to see the same type of development associated with Hickory Junction. The Community Wellness Center in Pendleton, a little different, but also similar. There it's more focused on racket sports, pickleball, tennis. They also have gymnastics inside. And then community hospital with the wellness and training and rehab, physical rehab in there as well. The one that's most closely, and we think that will mirror what's proposed for Hickory Junction, is Finch Creek Fieldhouse in Noblesville. And I've got some depictions up there of what the outside looks like, and that, I'm told, is pretty similar to what you should expect to see at Hickory Junction. And then if you look at the inside, there are two sides. There's a court side and a field side. And on the court side, you'll anticipate basketball, volleyball, pickleball, futsal, which is like indoor soccer with a small soccer ball and a smaller goal. It's kind of getting very popular. Then in the middle, there's pitching and batting cages along with the mezzanine for coaches or viewing. There's refreshments area in the middle. Then moving over to the field side, you'd have your baseball, softball, football, flag football, soccer, lacrosse on the field side. And again, Ben mentioned this is all inside, so not outside fields, all under roof that we would have in the field house. Hickory Junction Fieldhouse. So there's some renderings, again, pretty similar to what we see at Finch Creek. And again, the layout on the inside, that same concept of a court side and then a field side with those same types of sports and competitions and tournaments that will be brought to the field house. Why Hickory Junction, some of you might be thinking, because that's kind of a new thing. We started off with the draft, just Lebanon Fieldhouse, and then the marketing team really kind of looked into the community and the history and found that, as you all I'm sure know, the name Lebanon came from one of your founders, Adam French, saw the grove of hickory trees and was reminded of the cedars of Lebanon from the Old Testament and said, that's our name, City of Lebanon. So Hickory Junction, also the movie Hoosiers, Hickory, that kind of color scheme of that maroon and gold, just kind of fit. This is basketball country, especially March Madness right now, so it's kind of appropriate to have that. And so in looking at this project and the PUD and the field house, Card & Associates really wanted to become part of the community, to be an amenity and to help the community grow in a way that it would make sense and fit. And so that's where Hickory Junction, we wanted a name that would fit as well. So that's why Hickory Junction. Here is the map again. Ben had this up and go into a little bit more of the types of uses. You see the Fieldhouse there. The second dot there is the medical and commercial offices. And I want to focus on the medical, the little building that is just to the south of the Fieldhouse. We actually will have an updated figure when we move that to the other side, but medical office building, we're not at liberty to say the medical company that we're talking with now to be a partner in that, but we're excited about that. We think that in the near future we'll be able to discuss more in detail who that partner may be. But much like up in Pendleton, where community hospitals are partner up there and others, we're looking forward to having a pretty significant and well-respected partner in that medical office building that will also fit in well with the Fieldhouse as far as training and people play sports that get hurt. So that's going to be a great amenity for the development. Retail, restaurant, entertainment, then covered that, grocery, hotels, the multifamily cottages from Belcanto. Again, we've got Belcanto representatives here that can discuss more in detail to the extent you have questions. On the parking issue, the reason that it's a reduced number for the parking spaces is that the units have garages as well as driveways, so that they act as you're pulling those cars of the actual residents off of the parking area. So looking at just really what's the parking need for guests, or I mean, conceivably people could have more than 1 or 2 cars per household and out there. But in the other developments that they have, they're similar to this, that they see that that's really the need for the, I suppose, off-lot parking because of the garage driveway. And there's also a senior living component in the proposed development. This is more about the zoning and what's coming in, and I know that the council is more on the economic side, but I thought it would be important to highlight that it's approximately a $300 million investment and development out there, with about a $2.8 to $3 million tax increment annually when it's fully built out. So in addition to just bringing folks to town, bringing additional businesses and new residents to the community, all the things that it offers, I mean, it'll have a significant financial benefit to the city of Lebanon as well. And they're not requesting any tax abatement. Again, it's more of a council issue, but I think it's important for the commission to know as well. So very preliminary, just renderings of how we envision the commercial and retail district. Ben had mentioned about how it's no side setbacks or limited side setback. To have that kind of walkable urban feel for the commercial district, and that's what we're going for. Again, these are just very preliminary, but it will look great. But again, we want to have that walkability, that people are coming to the Fieldhouse for events or that live in the Belcanto portion can really walk around to do that live, work, play kind of model. Some renderings of the exterior of the Belcanto residential district. We've got a board on the table, and I think that was under a camera that you all may be able to see, maybe not when I've got my presentation up, but with some of the, there it is, with the interior finishes. So the top right, and Sandy, correct me if I get this wrong, top right, bottom left are actual units that they have built, and you can kind of see the marble, the granite countertops, and the wood floors, and the really nice finishes on the inside. The top left, bottom right are rendering or actual photos of clubhouse common area. I think I got that right. So we would anticipate the same type of detail and look in the Belcanto portion. And probably the most important, or one of the most important questions is, when is this all going to be out there? When are we going to see it? All right, what's our development schedule? Coming off of the last 2 years, everyone understands that schedules, as well intended as they may be, are out of our control. But we're pretty confident that we get through tonight, we get through the council approval, hopefully, of this PUD ordinance. We're starting in May of this year. And so phase 1, start in May 22, wrap that up in December of 24. That is going to be more of the Fieldhouse for sure, the medical office building. You can kind of to see in the slide. It's tough to see on my screen down here. But that first phase, medical office building, Bel Canto is going to get started, hotel. Phase 2 would begin January of '24, run through August of '25. More hotels, fill out that retail entertainment sector along 39. And then phase 3, finish up the rest of the development. Full build out of the medical office building, other commercial business uses that could be in there as well. And we anticipate that to run from September of '25 through January of '26. So barring, the unforeseen, which you can never bar that, things always happen, but we're pretty confident that that schedule is in the ballpark. And we're excited to get started. We're excited to be here tonight, have this first formal hearing on the ordinance, which will then allow us to move forward and start putting these pieces really together. With that, any questions that the commission would have of me or any specifics that we've got the whole team here who would be happy to address anything that you have. Again, thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you. Anyone on the board have questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Is the residential district, is it all rental? Just
I believe it's to be owned.
own?
It's all rental, correct? All rental.
All right.
When we talk about rental, we talking about overnight, weekly, or monthly, or yearly?
Sandy, do you want to come up here and?
Oh, monthly.
Okay, and then I didn't see anything around those residential with sidewalks, or is that all gonna be walking in the street?
No, there will be sidewalks. It's very walkable. Sandy, do you
Oh,
want to?
yeah, I can.
Probably easier than.
I understand, there's always a lot of questions with multifamily. And so with this particular project, we want to make sure that this is included in a holistic approach to the community. So as the entire master plan community is developed, there will be sidewalks integrated throughout the entire community, not just the residential portion, but thought will be given as to how those sidewalks connect to the balance of the development and how we can build a cohesive, holistic approach that people can live here. They can walk to the athletic facilities, they can walk to the shopping and dining, they can walk to medical. Their guests and friends and family can come and stay, and they can stay in the hotel, and they can walk back and forth, and they can participate. So we want to build a holistic community where everybody can live and work and play together.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Anyone in the audience? I'll open this up to the public hearing. Seeing no one coming to the microphone, we'll close the public hearing. Ben, you have something else to?
Thanks again, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm available if there's any other questions.
I don't think there are any questions that I know of.
It's senior targeted living too, correct? It is not senior targeted, okay.
That's a separate part.
And I guess while I'm thinking about it, you are talking with the state of Indiana on 39?
Yes.
Because I know that's a concern.
Yeah, and Kevin's been involved in a number of conversations. Yeah, it's underway.
Is it working okay?
Well, there's a,
Moving that way?
it's a very complex
Right.
traffic modeling situation. But yeah, we're doing all we can to work with the developer and work with the state. I'm confident they'll be able to come up with a solution. It's a complex model that they have to build per the state's requirements.
Right. Okay, I have one other question, is like on the, did I see on your notes about a grocery? What kind of grocery are you talking about?
You enjoyed Bunkfist, Director of Development for Carter Associates. With that brochure, as Sandy kind of mentioned, a holistic approach. So it'd be more of what you see with like a fresh market, so a smaller Meijer type setting or a smaller Kroger type setting, but not ruling any of the groups out. So it's just a type and place where it's not necessarily a whole grocery store in itself, but an area in which people who are staying in hotels or living within the Bel Canto development can funnel to that grocery store to be able to provide within the campus itself.
And I'd say something to you about the whole south end of Lebanon doesn't have a grocery store. So, I mean, that would be a night, besides the visitors, you'll have a lot of locals.
Yep, that is absolutely our intent, Commissioner, especially with what we're doing, but obviously we know what our friend Steve Hankey's doing just up the way with Waterford as well. We really feel
Right.
like there's some synergies between us and him.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I would entertain a motion for docket number 2210.
I'll make a motion to forward the planned unit development rezoning ordinance to the Common Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll, please?
John Lastly,
Yes.
Dan Bayshore,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
Brian Tandy,
Yes.
Lloyd Gross.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Looking forward to that, guys.
Okay, next item is docket number 2211, Tag Hachette Warehouse requesting development plan approval, a warehouse expansion at their facility located at 121 South Enterprise Boulevard. The property is zoned PVI, Planned Business Industrial. Ben?
It'll be Matt this
Oh,
time.
Matt, okay.
I'll take care of this one.
I didn't look up.
Before you tonight, I'm getting the slides pulled up so everybody can see what we're talking about here. We have Hachette Warehouse out in the Business Park. Been out there for quite a few years. A book distribution company. They are looking to add about 165,000 square foot expansion to their existing warehouse. So in the image that you see here, that's the site there along Enterprise Boulevard and Mount Zion Road. They are looking to add the expansion to the southern end. So you see an existing fire loop. That fire loop will go away, and they'll add 165,000 square feet to the south end, extending that fire loop around to the south side. And I'll pull up the schematics here. I knew I'd make it a little too big. So here's a rendering here that you can see the checkered area is going to be the new expansion of the warehouse. They will be adding additional truck docks to the east and west sides of the building. The fire loop will be extended around the southern end of the property. The parking that you see here is proposed future parking. So they currently have enough parking on site to accommodate our UDO standards, which are one space per employee per the largest shift, and one space per vehicle used in the operation of the business. Should additional parking be required once production ramps up, they do have room for 139 additional parking spaces. So those could be added at any time once the production and processes ramp up. Going through some of the development standards that we have, this is in a planned business industrial zone district, so the lot sizes, they more than meet most all of our development standards. Lot size, width, frontage, setbacks, minimum height, lot coverage. We touched on the parking a little bit again. They are currently adequately parked as is, but as production gets increased, they do have 139 places that they can add, 139 spaces. The applicant intends to, or did submit a lighting plan that meets all of our unified development standards. The landscaping plan, and I can pull that up here so you can get a quick shot of it. So you can see they've got the buffer landscaping along the southern end. They have parking lot perimeter landscaping along both sides, as well as interior landscaping, and then also building base landscaping through there. This project did receive a variance at the March 7th Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, and that was for parking area curbing. So the curb along the truck port on the east side, along the south side, and along the west side, there will not be any curbing. This entire parcel sheet drains to the back to a ditch on the southern end of the property. And had they added curb, would change the dynamics of the entire drainage for the entire site completely. So they were awarded a variance for that parking area curbing along the west, south, and east sides of the property. No additional signage is being proposed with this plan. The applicant has submitted architectural renderings, which I think he'll be able to pull some up here. Got a little presentation with some elevations to show you what it could look like. But they do meet all the applicable requirements from the UDO standards. And again, a quick addition to an already existing structure, so I don't have much more other than the staff recommendation is in review of the development plan, Lebanon Planning staff finds compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance requirements for the subject site, and staff recommends approval of the subject development plan contingent on the following condition: that the applicant adequately addresses any remaining City of Lebanon technical advisory comments prior to application for building permits. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and again, the applicant's here and can speak more to the design and engineering and any other fun questions you may have.
Okay, any member of the board have a question for Matt? Okay, we'll ask the applicant to come forward, please.
My name's Jared Wilkerson with American Structure Point. I'm the civil engineer working on this project. Matt covered a lot of the details, so I won't go into too much of what he's already covered, but the expansions on the south side of the existing building, on Mount Zion Road. There's a site plan, again, loading docks on the east and west side. We'll continue the loop road, fire access road around the south in the building, and landscape plan, have the buffer plantings for the corridor as well as interior plantings as well, and then the elevations, so really just match the existing building. We have photometrics, building mounted lighting, so all that meets standard. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the board? The only question I had is on the fire loop. When it gets there at the end, is there room back there for the fire department to turn around? Because it doesn't go on the way around. But there's enough room in there.
The fire loop extends all the way around the building. So
Because I
it's
just didn't see it
360
there.
degrees access.
Okay. I just didn't see it on the drawing. Okay. Okay.
The proposed parking on the south side, when it happens, is that intended for employees, or will it be used for excess trailer parking?
It would be car parking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I would entertain a motion for docket number, no, I end up public hearing, again, I get to jump ahead of it. Anyone like to come forward and speak? All right, not to see anyone, I'll close the public hearing. Okay. I will entertain a motion for docket number 2211.
I'd motion to approve docket 22-11 contingent on the TAC comments.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
John Leslie,
Yes.
Dan Bayshore,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
Brian Tandy,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. The next item on the docket is docket number 2213, the Peterson Company requesting development plan approval for light manufacturing logistics development of 2 parcels located at 720 South State Road 39. The property is zoned PBI, Planned Business Industrial. Ben?
Very good. Thank you, Keith. For those of you that have been on the Planning Commission for a few years, this may be a site that's familiar to you. We can get situated here. This site came to you back in 2018. The site is located at State Road 39 and Enterprise Drive, directly across the street from the project we were just looking at a little bit ago, with a PUD rezone for the Fieldhouse project. This site was originally proposed in 2018 to include a couple of speculative industrial buildings that I'll show you here in a second. That project at that time, we received all its necessary approvals. However, the applicant at that time decided not to move forward with the project, and the property has sat vacant since August of 2018. Our development plan approvals have a 1-year expiration date after the date of approval, and that expiration came and passed without the project moving forward. Given the fact that sometimes standards change and design standards change on a site, we require them to come back through just to make sure everything still meets all the appropriate standards. So the applicant does have a new builder for this project. They're ready to move forward now. And so this is coming back to you with essentially the same site plan as received approval back in 2018, but because again the approval expired, it's coming back to you for reapproval. So let me then pull up here the site plan. Here's a site plan for the overall project. Again, it'll look very familiar for those of you who recall this project a couple of years ago. Again, Enterprise Drive on the south, State Road 39 on the east. You see you have 2 entrances to the project, one on State Road 39, and this is primarily a truck access point that you see here. And then another access on the south side of Enterprise Drive. This will primarily be employee customer access to the parking areas on the south sides of the building. So you can see here, I'll zoom in just a little bit. We have 2 buildings here. One of them is right around 100,000 square feet that you see here on the west end of the property. And then on the east end, you got a slightly larger building, it's about 170,000 square feet. Again, you can kind of see to the rears of the buildings here, you see all the truck dock areas, and then all of the employee access areas will be on the south side of the building. Just kind of walking through some of the highlights here in the staff report. Again, development standards, this is in a planned business industrial zoning district and the thoroughfare overlay district. So they do more than meet all of the lot size, width, frontage requirements, and then all of the applicable setbacks and height requirements. In terms of the parking approval, this is at this time a speculative project. The tenant is unknown. And so we will reevaluate those parking requirements once that tenant is known. In terms of the buildings, the first building 1 includes about 80 spaces with some future spaces that could be added. And the second building has just short of 100 spaces with some additional future spaces to be added as well. One additional thing that this actually came up back in 2018 as terms of the variance approval that they had received. They actually received relief from the sidewalk requirement on Enterprise Drive. However, the condition was that they would work with NDOT to find an appropriate location for a sidewalk on State Road 39. Given the fact that we're doing a large development on the east side that will have quite a bit of pedestrian activity, we do want to make sure that they work with NDOT to try to locate that sidewalk on State Road 39. So that's one element that we want them to get finalized before receiving the full building permit approvals. In terms of lighting, they have submitted a photometric plan that meets all required standards, and additionally a landscape plan that meets all of the applicable standards of the PBI zoning district and the thoroughfare overlay district, when also considering some variances they received back in 2018. Signage plan, again, this is a speculative project, so signage isn't known at this time. However, when the tenant is identified, they'll have to submit a signage plan that meets all applicable standards of the zoning ordinance. And architectural renderings, they do meet all the requirements of the UNIO, and for reference, large-scale manufacturing facilities are exempt from some of the standards requirements, but they do have a very nice-looking building. And finally, staff recommendation and review of the submitted primary development plan is presented. Planning staff finds compliance with the unified development requirements for the subject site and recommends approval of the subject development plan contingent on the following conditions. One, the applicant adequately address any remaining attack comments. Two, the applicant receive formal drainage approval from the City of Lebanon. Number three, the applicant work with staff and NDOT to determine the location of sidewalk on State Road 39. And number four, applicant submit a signage plan indicating location and elevations of all proposed signs before receiving sign permits. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from anyone on the board?
Ben, the only question I would have, and I'm sure, again, as Kevin has said numerous, that NDOT and the city's working tight together and so
Yes.
forth. Obviously, having one on one side of the street and one on the other side of the street probably makes it even more complicated. I assume they're going to be working somewhat both together to make that transition happen.
Yes, NDOT's aware of both projects.
Okay.
And so they're certainly working to determine the appropriate solution on State
Okay.
Road 39 for both
And I
projects.
figured they knew about both, but,
Yep.
Helps they have the same civil engineer for both
oh,
projects, too.
well, that's nice too.
That would help.
Couldn't do that again.
No. Okay. All right. Would the applicant come forward?
Good evening. I'm Aaron Hurt with Civil and Environmental Consultants, civil engineer for the Peterson Company. Matt Brower is here tonight, a developer. Answer any questions that you have for him. I think Ben did a great job explaining the project. You know, it was approved in 2018. Essentially the same project. You know, COVID happened, things happened, so things were delayed a bit. In terms of the traffic, we did have an NDOT permit for the curb cut prior, and then it expired as well. We are doing a detailed traffic study across the street as well. We've had a good communication with NDOT, and Kevin's been part of that. So certainly we'll make sure that we make traffic good in the area. I do have building elevations here, so happy to answer any questions that you have. We are willing to work with NDOT and the city on the sidewalk along State Road 39, so we'll make sure that that is located properly. I guess with that, I'll just turn over to any questions that you have.
Anyone have a question? Okay. Now I will thank you for your time. Now we will open up the public hearing. Again, not seeing anyone coming forward, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you. Okay, I would entertain a motion on docket number 2213.
I'll make a motion, docket 2213, to approve the development plan contingent on any remaining TAC comments, stormwater approval, sidewalk, and signage plan.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Would you have the roll call, please?
John Lastly,
Yes.
Dan Bayshore,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
Brian Tandy,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, thank you. Next item is docket number 2215. Jason and Christy Labrie requesting annexation of .65 acres into the corporate city limits located at the general address of 1995 South 100 East. Ben?
Last but finally, not least, we have an annexation request that's come to the city. I'll let the applicant kind of explain the situation they're in, but if they want to pull it up and kind of walk through generally here what's going on. Pull up the screen. So the applicant lives at the house that you see here, and then they own 2 parcels to their east and south. These 2 northern parcels are within city limits of Lebanon and within our planning jurisdiction. This piece that you see highlighted in yellow is not within city of Lebanon city limits, so that is within currently the county's planning jurisdiction, so they have a property that's split between 2 planning jurisdictions, and they're running into some challenges logistically into trying to make improvements to their property with one being in the city and one being outside the city. So they did request annexation for the remaining 0.65 acres you see here highlighted in yellow, just so that the entire property they own will all be within the city limits of the city of Lebanon and all within the same planning jurisdiction, so they can move forward with some of the projects that they're proposing. Just a quick reminder of the process here. This is the first step in a multiple-step process similar to the pre-PUD rezone. It's the Plan Commission's responsibility to provide a recommendation on a zoning district for the property, and then that zoning district will be included as part of a zoning, an annexation ordinance that will then be considered by the Common Council at their next meeting. So that would be what's before you here tonight. In looking at this area, it is primarily an agricultural and/or large lot residential area. Given that there isn't a development proposed here, this is merely just kind of squaring up their property to allow them to make some improvements, residential improvements to their property. We do recommend the SF, Single Family Residential Zoning District for this property, and recommend that you forward that zoning classification to the Common Council for the proposed annexed territory. With that, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, any questions for Ben? Okay. Is the applicant here? Come forward, please.
Hello, I'm Christy LeBrie. My husband and I own the home, and I think, I'm short, and I think Ben did a great job of presenting all the information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you'd have.
Anyone have a question?
No.
Okay, that was nice and short, wasn't it? Okay, we'll now have a public hearing again. I'll open it up. Not seeing anyone, so we'll close the public hearing. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for docket number 2215.
I'll make a motion for docket 2215, recommend the single-family residential zoning classification to the Common Council for the proposed annexed territory.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. To roll call, please.
John Lastly,
Yes.
Dan Bayshore,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
Brian Tandy,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda, is there any other business that we need to cover? Ben, you know of any? I don't know of any either. Anyone on the board? Okay, our next motion would be the one everybody likes to know about,
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, and I'll just say, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we are adjourned. The next meeting will be on Monday, April 18th, 2022. Okay, thank you.